One of the most fun things to do with weather data, in my opinion, is to make what's known as a time plot. A time plot is a special type of scatter plot where you're going to show the time. In this case, we're going to show dates, but we could also show months, and we'll look at that too, on the horizontal axis. And then we are going to look at one of these other quantitative variables like precipitation or one of the temperatures on the vertical or y-axis. So in Excel, it's pretty easy to do. What we're going to do is I'm going to click on this column, and then I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on this column. There are other ways to do it, but you can see that's selected both of them. Our date is on the left, so Excel will automatically recognize that as the X. The one on the right, it'll automatically recognize as the Y. And then we go to Insert and select this, and we'll select the scatter plot, and it will go ahead and make a scatter plot. You can see it put the dates on the X-axis. It put this on the Y-axis. So let's add some axis labels here with the plus sign. If the plus sign doesn't show up on your version of Excel, just go up to Add Chart Element and it'll show up there. So let's just click on Axis Titles right there. This runs a little slowly because there's a lot of different values. You have 20 years of data we're looking at. So we just go down here and we change our axis titles. This is actually much slower than it was when I tried this a few minutes ago, but it will still work. We'll change that to date, which is kind of obvious. I'm not even sure if we need a label for something that's that obvious. But this one will change to T max, and I will make a note that that is in degrees Fahrenheit. And then look at this beautiful scatter plot. It looks like a big blob of blue that was just thrown there on the screen. So obviously this is not a good looking plot at all. So let's make some modifications to see it a little better. So the first thing I can do is click on this and I can stretch this out because it's 20 years of data, so it should be stretched out quite a bit. Still looks pretty garbagey, doesn't it? Can't really see much. And that's because there's so much white space here. Looking closer, what is going on? 10/1900. I don't know of any date that would be January 0th, 1900, and it goes all the way into 2036. Well, that's obviously not ideal. So pretty much anything in this chart you can edit by double-clicking it. So in this case, double-click directly on one of those dates, like right on the date itself. And you have this sidebar, and if you click on the one that looks like bars and you go to Axis Options, it's saying the minimum is 0. Now, Excel doesn't really know what 1/1/2000 is. It stores everything as numbers. So we change a minimum to, I played around with this ahead of time. You just have to play around with it to figure out where exactly you'd like to start. And if I start at 37,000, that's pretty close. Let's try 36,000. So 36,000 starts in 1998. Our data starts in 2000, so that's pretty good. And instead of ending in 45,000, let's end at 44,000. There's probably a better way to do that, but it doesn't take very long to play around with it. Now I'll make this chart larger as well, vertically. And now we can really see what's going on with our temperature, our maximum temperature in Portland, Maine. You can see we start here in January 2000. It goes up. These dots are, you notice this one's labeled for us 9/1/2000, had a maximum temperature of 90 degrees. Back down in the winter, back up in the summer, down in the winter, up in the summer. And you can see the nice seasonality, which is depicted every year. And you can see it's fairly predictable. Some years have colder days than others. Some years have a few hotter days than others. But generally, there is an overall pattern here of the ups and downs, and it's very consistent and predictable. That's what we call climate, is these larger scale trends as opposed to weather, which is the day-to-day phenomenon that we observe. So you have to be a little careful, though, because with my time plot, watch this. Now, if I go in here and I go back to the filter and I turn on a filter, watch what happens if I filter for only Januaries. Now it's only showing January. So this is an example of when the filter is actually hiding all that data from the plot. And this, just what are we looking at here? This is very sort of confusing. So when you're using filters with your plots, just be careful to make sure you're showing what you actually want to show, which would be, in this case, all the data. The last thing we should do is probably put a title on this. Boy, this is slow. We'll call this Daily Maximum Temperature 2000 through 2019. I can be more specific, but it is those full years plus a few days in January 2020, but that's about it. So let's look at doing this from a pivot table as well in the next video.